Today I'm joined by Alan from Overlander 4x4. We're going to be doing some green laning in two Isuzu D-Max vehicles, and we just wanted to have a little chat before we start. If you could tell us a bit more how these cars are in terms of driving, in terms of the exterior, what was your experience so far with the car?
In like the motoring journalist trade, we talk about door handle launches, right? Which is when manufacturers like make a tiny change to a vehicle and say, hey, check out our new model, and it's like, whatever. But last year Isuzu did that with the D-Max, just changing the grille. And like never in my entire career have I seen a door handle launch that's made such a difference. This grille that they've added, it's kind of like the one from the old XTR model from the previous generation D-Max. And it's made such a difference to the vehicle. It looks really cool. I think it looks really cool now. From what I've read online, everybody else agrees. And it's won our pickup of the year title twice since it was launched, which is pretty good going, because that's 2 out of 3 years, which ain't bad at all. It's like big hefty pickup truck, obviously. It feels really rugged. When you drive it, it feels like the real thing. It doesn't feel like it's pretending to be anything it isn't, which you've not always been able to say about every pickup on the market. But this is like, it's a very authentic kind of a vehicle. It feels like it's not going to break. And ahead of our green laning trips, I've explored its capability a little and done it a certain amount of ill treatment, shall we say, and it's just come back looking for more. So it's well,
on this one you've also got a couple of additional accessories fitted. Could you tell us a bit more about these?
I can tell you those lights are wicked. The amount of light they put out. You're green laning at night and it's like day. I mean, that's the thing with LEDs. They produce like really white light. It's very much like daylight. And these ones, they look quite small. You know, you get vehicles with these massive, big, entirely, vehicle-wide bars, which is what I've got on mine, and it is outstanding. But they're quite almost not anonymous, but considering they're quite small, the amount of light they put out is astonishing.
So what would you say about your car experience with the car so far? I know we've been driving it for a week or so. You've been mainly doing on-road driving. How was that? How was the car in there?
Well, compared to my D-Max, which is like lifted and it's on mud terrain tyres, and it's got like about a ton of bumpers and stuff like that stuck to it. This is very smooth, quiet on the motorway, really, really good on fuel compared to mine. I mean, mine, I shouldn't say this, but mine's pretty shocking on fuel, which is what happens when you modify something heavily for off-roading. They're giving it some quite hard time, and it's not blinked at all. Just a nice thing to drive. And
brilliant.
My kids love it too. They love riding in it too.
Can imagine it's a lot of fun.
yeah, absolutely.
Guys, it seems like you're enjoying the D-Max so far. I'm going to ask you another question about the features. What's been the highlight feature for you so far driving the D-Max?
Okay, I'm going to fudge that slightly. I'm going to give you two answers.
Go on.
One is the heated seats, because when we're outside the vehicle having a lunch or something on a windy Welsh hillside, my inner snowflake comes out when I get back in. I'm feeling a bit cold, put the heated seats on, but it's like, yeah, this is all right. But for off-roading, it's the locking rear diff is a game changer, particularly because the rear springs have got to hold up a ton. So in certain off-road situations, they can get bouncy. If you're going uphill over like severe rock steps or whatever, it can mean that one side will lighten up and all your drive disappears out through that wheel and you ain't going anywhere. The only answer, if you've not got a locking rear diff, unless you're going to winch it up or something, is to hit it with more speed. And that's not good for the vehicle, it's not good for the people in it, it's not good for the ground beneath you, and it can put you out of control as well and send you sideways, none of which is what you want. If you can lock your rear differential, it means that both your back wheels are turning at exactly the same speed, so neither of them is going to spin out, and that way you can crawl up a rock step, for example, in a way that you simply couldn't with an open rear diff. So, and the current D-Max gained a rear diff compared to the old one, and like I say, that's been a game changer. it makes it so much easier to control in extreme situations like that, and it gives it so much more traction when you're on soft, otherwise loose surfaces.
How did you find this week so far?
Oh, I just love doing this. I love green laning. When somebody first told me that green laning existed, to me, growing up in Britain, it's like everything's like buttoned up and everything's neat and tidy, and every field's got a fence around it, and every road's got a white line along the side and all that kind of stuff. And the idea that in Britain there were roads that had survived ever having tarmac put on top of them. Wow, God, that did my head in. That was brilliant. I thought, what an adventure to go and explore all this stuff. And here I am, like about 1,000 years later, and like all my hair's fallen out. But I still love it. I still love exploring. And like this week, I've driven a lot of green lanes around Britain. And I've driven most of the parts of the country where green lanes exist, and yet this week I've discovered new ones that I've never driven before.
Right, so you've mentioned a bit about exterior now, some standout features. How do you think it compares to the competition?
I'd say that the pickup market is very strong now. There's less models in it than there were a few years ago, and each one is very strong in its own way. I would say that where the D-Max stands out is by offering a really well-rounded package, a very fit-for-purpose package, at a price that is, I would call, an honest price. For the kind of people who buy real-world trucks, I think the D-Max offers a great deal for your money. And I think that's why you're seeing so many of them around.
Over the last couple of days, we've been to very varied green lanes. We've been to Wales, where we've had some beautiful scenery. We've been to the lakes, where we've seen amazing content. We've been to Thetford Forest, where we've seen lots of forest. And today we're doing the very muddy Salisbury. How does the D-Max drive in these tougher terrains? What's the experience like?
For the kind of off-roading we're doing today, it's all about traction. Obviously, in Thetford Forest, it's quite a grippy surface. In the lakes and up in parts of Wales where we were driving, it's quite rocky. So your tyres have always got plenty of grip. Now, we're on standard road-going tyres today, and if you want to drive in beaten mud, really, you want mud tyres. But, well, gosh, I mean, we've defeated some pretty serious slippy, not deep mud, but wet, grassy, muddy climbs, and we've made it up. Had to work for it a bit, but between the locking rear diff and the traction control, and obviously four-wheel drive, it was never in doubt. We were going to make it up, even if we had to work for it. We were going to make it, and I think that stands testament to D-Max's ability in conditions like that.
You've mentioned a lot of good things about the rougher terrains and how the D-Max gets through any kind of terrain on green lanes. What would you say about its handling?
Well, handling's a funny concept off-road because we're going quite slowly, so to me it's more about ride actually, just to take your question and ignore it fundamentally. But one of the things I always say about pickups is, they're designed to take a ton of gravel in the back, and the back springs have got to be able to hold that up. So when you're running unladen, obviously, the springs are capable of holding up all that weight, and you'd think it's going to be bouncy as all hell at the back, but actually, the D-Max rides surprisingly smoothly on bumpy ground. And that's very different to many of the pickups that I've driven in the past, where they'll be all right on the road, and if you do carry a lot of weight in the back, they're absolutely fine. But when you hit any sort of corrugations, you need to sort of count your teeth afterwards. And the D-Max just isn't like that at all. I've got to say, it seems to me like a lot of work's gone into the rear suspension, and as a result, the balance of ride and handling is very good.
What's been your favourite green lane so far out of the 4 regions?
My favourite individual green lane from these
Just
four?
one.
It's one, wow, that's tricky. You see, you can't really single out one green lane on Salisbury Plain. I'm not giving you a straight answer because I'm me, but you can't single out one green lane on Salisbury Plain because they all blend into each other, and I do love it on Salisbury Plain. The bleakness, it's like being in it's like being in a completely different country. The lanes in the Lake District are great, but I would say possibly Manufacture Castle in Wales. Just the views, just wonderful, combined with some quite technical driving in places, some surface water, which is always good fun. Quite a nice lunch that we had while we were up there, which always helps, clearly, because green laning is a social activity ultimately. Go on. If you twist my arm, then I'll say possibly Manufacture Castle from Wales.
Okay, Alan, so we've been to a lot of green lanes, we've done a lot of difficult terrains, a lot of road driving as well in the last week. Would you recommend the D-Max to Overlander 4x4 reader who wants to go on green lanes?
Yeah, I would recommend the D-Max. It's a very good choice for a daily driver. It's a very good choice for a work truck, certainly, obviously, and for an off-roader, great choice. Easy enough to modify. There's plenty of equipment available for it. When it comes down to it, I own one, so that's as good a recommendation as you're ever going to need, right? Because I know exactly what I'm on about. If you want to do green laning, I would recommend joining the Green Lane Association, GLASS as it's known. It's the best £49 you will ever spend as a green lane user. The organisation, it works very hard to defend green lanes, to keep them open, to keep them in usable condition. There are people, organisations that want to see green laning banned, very unreasonably in my view. However, that has to be defended against, and the Green Lane Association does that very diligently and very skillfully, and in a very non-confrontational way. So, like green laners themselves, it's a very grown-up organisation, and one without which this hobby probably wouldn't exist anymore. So yeah, if you do green laning, join GLASS. The other thing, if you join GLASS, you get access to Trailwise, which is an online database of pretty much every right of way, and it is the most invaluable source of information you will ever see for this hobby. So there's my top tip.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Alan, for joining us. It was a brilliant adventure we've had over the last couple of days.
It's been an absolute ball.
Yeah, drive on.
To go laning. Yeah. Lane on.
We should say that. Lane on.
Never say that to me again.
Thank you for watching. That's been Isuzu at Green Lanes. We're going to take on the next adventure very soon, so make sure you follow Isuzu UK across all social media. Until the next one.